Hey guys, so today we're going to continue on with this idea of reading intensely and really getting focused and really diving in deep into our book. Um, but at the end of that, you still have to be able to pause and retell what you've read. So we're going to work on how we can kind of combine both of those skills today. So I feel like sometimes when we're nose deep in a book or really into it, sometimes things are moving so fast and our brain has so much going on and we're trying to process everything at once. So sometimes it's good just to pause and orient ourselves. So kind of just like hit the pause button for a second. This is also a good time to take some notes. Maybe we've been working on that taking notes. So if your brain is feeling kind of full, like you've hit capacity, hit the pause button. And this is a good time to retell the story to yourself or maybe jot down a few things. So today as you read, I want you to work on hitting that pause button. And in this case, we can either retell or take notes. But again, we will have 4 notes per chapter. So maybe this is a good time every couple paragraphs, maybe third or fourth paragraph, hit the pause button, stop, and give your brain some time to process. Let things just like slow down a little bit. So readers take big steps to retell the important events chronologically. Chronologically means in order. Think of it as kind of like a timeline. And if you look here, there are big feet taking big steps. It would take forever for us to retell our story if we told someone every little detail. And that's not really a retell. A retell is just like a big picture. This is kind of think of the main idea with nonfiction, how you really have to just pull out the big important details. Same idea here. You're only pulling out the big details, but you're putting them in order to retell your story. So I want us to think back of the Tiger Rising so far. First of all, a lot has happened in these last couple of chapters. We're seeing a lot of new character developments. We're learning more about Rob. We're learning more about his life. He's kind of having some flashbacks too. So it's really important to recognize these events in order. So what I want you to do is to take your hand and put it up in front of your face, and have your fingers facing towards you. We are going to retell what has happened so far. So we're only taking big steps. The thing that your hand forces you to do is it only lets you retell 5 major events. Because you only have 5 fingers per hand, you are going to have to select those 5 big events that you think are the most important so far. So if I was to do this, and I don't want to give too much away for you guys here, I would start with something like Rob's mother died and him and his father had to move into the Kentucky Star Motel. Rob was getting bullied on the bus. I might add finding the tiger into the beginning piece, but again, it was only mentioned in the beginning. I didn't really dive into too much of it. So I think I would actually probably leave that out from the beginning. It was only really mentioned in like 2 sentences, and we don't really know what happened. So I think I'm going to bring that back in later as it comes back up into more detail. So that's what you're going to have to kind of work on today is pulling out, okay, was that the most important detail or was that kind of a supporting detail? A really good example would be when Sistine comes on the bus and she's in a pink, I know a lot of us really honed in on that moment when she got on the bus with a pink dress. And so you could say a girl got on the bus with a pink dress. I don't know if that's a major event. Something like, or Rob getting a noogie from Billy and Norton. Okay, well, that gets a little specific. So maybe you could combine one finger detail into Rob is getting bullied and then Sistine gets on the bus. Something like that. And you don't have to put in the most particular details. This might take you a couple of tries to really pick out the 5 most important things that you think happened. But you really want to, this walking across your fingers is really helpful because it only gives you 5 options here. So you really have to narrow it down, and it's hard after reading this many chapters to pick out 5 big events. It's a really, really good practice to kind of push yourself and really pull out these details. You will have to share your retell in your Google Classrooms today. So take the time now to kind of practice and narrow it down to your 5 most important events. And then I want you to go tell someone in your house. It could be mom, dad, brother, sister, whoever. Go give them your quick retell of Tiger Rising, and hopefully you've been talking to them about the book a little bit, so they might kind of know what's going on. I want you now, we've done it with the Tiger Rising, and this is really good because this is a book we're reading together and we can kind of double check each other. I kind of want you to think now about your independent reading book. This might be a chapter book you've been reading for quite a few weeks. This might be a book you kind of just started, and you can still do this. That's okay. You could even do this with a picture book. So if you're like, all right, well, I just finished my independent reading book. I haven't really started a new one yet. That's fine. Go get one off Epic. It can be a little bit shorter book. You can still use this 5-finger retell no matter what book you're reading. And I want us to really focus in on this image here of the man walking across the building. We are going from big event to big event. So let me change my pen color here. So we have a very large leap this man is taking, and he's leaping over the city in this case. These are all very small little buildings. He's going from one to the other that are both large. You are going to have a lot of these small details like this. But you have to figure out how to leave those out and narrow it down to the 5 biggest things. And it can be really hard. There's times we get really excited about our book and we want to tell everything, but we really have to get rid of the small details. Because if someone said, hey, give me the 5-finger retell, you can only pick 5 events. So you're going to have to think back on the Tiger Rising and your independent reading book. What are the 5 most important things that have happened so far? What are the 5 things that you really, 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 if you didn't know about them, you wouldn't understand the book? There are certain things you could leave out. The girl was wearing a pink dress. That's important, but if you didn't know that, you could still understand the story. So that's what you want to ask yourself. What details does my audience need to know to really understand the story? So let me erase this here. We'll go to our next slide. So this is really kind of what we want to focus on today. There's so much happening in a book that you want to orient yourself. Think of orienting yourself as using a compass, making sure you're going the right direction. Your orientation is the direction you're facing. Make sure you're going in the right direction. Sometimes we start reading so fast that we've got a spinning compass and we don't know which way we're going, right? So if you feel like your compass is spinning or your brain's getting full, perfect time to pause and retell your book. So you've got to start recognizing this within yourself, like, ooh, okay, I'm confused, I need to stop. Maybe I need to write this down. Maybe I need to find a friend and go talk about it. Maybe I need to go to use my 5-finger retell really quick to make sure it's in my brain. So we're really working on that today. I would recommend, like I said, I like to pause every couple of paragraphs. Some people like to pause at the end of the chapter. And I really do think it depends on what's going on in the story. There are times when our story gets so crazy, we might have to stop after every single paragraph. Or maybe it's the kind of chapter where not much happens, and you can wait till the end of the chapter to pause. But that's really on you. When you start to feel a little overwhelmed or you're getting a lot of details at once, great time to stop and retell. So your job today is we're going to have to do a 5-finger retell with Tiger Rising. It will be in a Google response. And then we're also going to have our book talk this afternoon. And we're going to kind of share our retells. And that way you can compare with your classmates. What did I find important and what did they find important? And this is a really good practice to kind of see, like, okay, did I pull out the most important details? Or we're even going to practice retelling our own independent reading book And that'll be a good time for you also to talk about a book that someone else has never read and see if you can still retell it so that they understand it. Again, 4 notes per chapter. You guys have 3 chapters today. It's kind of a lot, but they're all short. I am reading chapter 4 to you. So as you read chapter 4, you can take your notes as I'm reading to you. Chapter 5 and 6, you're reading out loud and taking your notes as you read out loud. So I would say, I guess, 12-ish notes in total, but make sure you're splitting them up by chapter. So in your notebook, again, we've talked about this, organizing it by chapter. And these notes will really, really help you when you go to retell. Do your retell at the end of chapter 6. And it is hard. You have 6 chapters to retell in 5 big events. But I think with a little practice and talking through it with someone in your household, you'll really be able to narrow it down to those 5 most important events and be prepared to share in our book talk this afternoon.